Thank you. So now I have a new rule when giving a presentation. Don't follow Kathy. So I want to talk a bit about leadership. And I think that there's a lot of the canned stuff that we all get on leadership. And the typical definition seems to be, leaders are one that others follow. And so folks come at leadership and they think, well, I'm running a business, or I'm running a sales team, or I'm running an event, or whatever it is. And so I need people to follow me. So I'm going to do these things to get people to follow me. And I don't like that definition. I don't like that approach, coming at it from, I'm going to do things to get you to behave the way I want. I come at it from a different way. I come at it and I say, my challenge, my opportunity, the place I need to do the work is on me. And if I do the work on me that I need to do, then I can have the right to give it a shot to try to lead others. So that's the view that I'm going to come at this with. And don't get me wrong, leadership is a real thing and you do need to lead others, but I start with leading oneself. So I'm going to talk for a bit, and let me also say, in the spirit of time, I know that lunch comes after this, so I'm going to be very mindful of time, but I'm going to talk about leading oneself, and then we'll get into a couple of specific tactics about how we lead others. Then we can do some Q&A if there's any Q&A, and then I'll wrap it up for you. So I'll tell you a bit about me. Sorry. So again, I'm a restaurateur. I've got restaurants here in the DC area, Maryland, Virginia, DC, one in Pennsylvania. We've got a bakery, we've got a distillery, founding farmers. Thank you. Founding farmers, farmers, fishers, bakers, farmers and distillers. I love you, thank you. Hooking me up, I'll take it. See, I don't dance, but I high five. Thank you. So I have about 1,600 employees. We serve about 50,000 guests per week. So, over 500,000 guests per year come through our restaurants. We generate about $85 million a year in annual revenue. I've got 3 kids, boys. They'll love it if I say their names, so just so I can tell them I did. Cooper, Oliver, and Finn, 15, 13, and 10. If I'm a little sleepy, we stayed up late last night. We watched the Red Sox win the World Series. I'm from Boston, so sorry if you don't love that, but I did. So I was hanging out with my boys last night. I've got one wife, Susie, and I've got one. Yeah. I know where to stay focused. And I've got one business partner, Mike. So I'm a relationship person, and I have a lot in my life. And I never say I'm busy. I'm not. I'm focused. I never say I'm overwhelmed. I'm not. I know what my priorities are. Certainly not perfect. I have my struggles. But I believe that I have a lot of people to serve. And I guess if you look at this, I have a lot of people to lead. So for me, leadership is service, and sometimes people need a boss, and sometimes people need a shoulder to cry on, and sometimes I need a boss, and sometimes I need a shoulder to cry on. So I know that in my quest to serve others, what I really need to do is serve myself. And I serve myself by managing myself, and by leading myself, and by holding myself accountable, and not giving myself anywhere to hide. So what's up with that walkout song, right? When I think about a communicator, a poet, a leader, someone who can send messages, someone who had every reason to complain and justify and go the wrong way and lose instead of win. I mean, you talk about a difficult situation and hurdles to overcome. Tupac was as good a communicator, as good a poet as I have ever seen, and with no complaints. He didn't blame, right? And you think about it, maybe he should have. But no, it wouldn't get you anywhere. Just because you have stuff to complain about and you have legitimate complaints, what does it get you? So I like to hold him up as an example of a communicator. And the specific song, Changes, that I played when I walked out, it's about injustice, and it's about the difficulties and the problems that Tupac saw in society. And he could see the future too, because he could have written that song yesterday, frankly, for the difficulties that we still see. But Tupac was obvious in his message. You got to start with you. And Changes was obvious in its message when you read those lyrics and you hear that the answer, it's in the mirror. The problem might look like it's out there, but if you want the solutions and you want to make some change, the good news is it's in the mirror. I find it an incredibly powerful and motivating message, because when you look out there and you can see the challenges and the difficulties, and granted, I'm lucky, there's a lot in my life that, let's say maybe I had it easier than a poet like Tupac had it, but it doesn't matter, because everybody has hurdles to overcome. It is that simple, right? We are all the same when it comes to there's difficulty out there. And in business, whether you're in sales or you're a photographer or you're an event planner or you're a CEO of your business or you're a owner of a business and it's a business of one, it's tough out there, right? There's someone else trying to take your clients. There's someone else trying to do your projects. There's someone else now that you can finally raise your prices that wants to start and change less. And then as your business grows, minimum wage, legislation, regulation, a president that's like gone bonkers. And if you like him, that's cool. I'm not here to get political, whatever, but like, it's just crazy out there, right? So I listen to these messages and I think, good, because I want to control what I can control. And the number one thing that I can control is me. I got a thing for stick figures because I can't dance and I can't draw, okay? So stick figures are super helpful for me. I feel like the common thing that we see out there, the way I see business leaders talk to their employees, the way I often see people give speeches, and I hope I'm not this guy and you're not the little ones laying on the ground by the time I'm done. But it's so often someone uninspired talking in an uninspiring way that people are so also uninspired that this is it. And this is so what people are used to, like this scene, this is called working, right? So we're not doing that, right? I'm not doing that. You're not going to stand for that. If you feel like that 15 minutes from now, just get up and leave, right? Don't let me waste your time, and I will hold myself accountable to that. So these are two little recipes. I'm a food guy, obviously, as a restaurateur, and so I like recipes. I like a formula. I like to understand the playbook. And I think there's one recipe where folks start and they want to lead and manage others, right? And that's what they're going to do. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm going to show you what to do, and I've got the right vision, and this is how we're going to do it, and I'm the boss. Look at my business card, and you work for me. And here's what you should do better, and here's what I don't like about what you do. And that's their recipe. And maybe they'll look in the mirror later. Maybe they'll manage themselves at the end of the year, at the end of the decade. That's an awful recipe. As a restaurateur, I know a bad recipe when I see one. If you start and the biggest ingredient is everybody else, it's not a salad I want. But if you start with you, and you say, this is what I'm going to lead. This is what I'm going to manage. This is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to improve. Before I tell you what I want you to do differently, maybe I should listen to you about what you want me to do differently. You might say to me, hey, Dan, stop moving around so much. It's annoying. Your voice is getting raspy. Get a sip of water. There's a lot of feedback out there that is incredibly valuable. And so, as much as, for example, even today, I'm hoping I have something of value to share, but I'm listening to other speakers, and I'm also listening to you as I stand here. I try to deal with these glaring lights, but when I say I'm listening to you, I'm looking at you, right? And if I'm not keeping your attention, I'm not going to yell at you to say, turn your cell phone off or pay attention. I'm going to realize I'm apparently boring. I need to do something of more value if I want to deserve your attention. So we're going to do a little informal poll here, and we're going to use a show of hands. So this is my first question. Raise your hand if you think it's important to know what other people think of you. See some hands? It's okay. It's not a trick question. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it feels kind of like a trick question because sometimes it's like, yeah, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks of me, right? So I get that. But when we think about it, you know what? It really does matter what other people think of us. Kathy Romero just said you want them to like you even more. You want them to trust you. Well, if they don't, right? She was so spot on with that. If they don't, you can't just say, why don't you trust me? Why? Because they're not sitting there talking to you anymore. Kathy will tell you, you already lost them. You lost them somewhere earlier in the process. So I do think it's valuable. We should know. So with a show of hands, how many of you, either at this point in your businesses, whether you own your business or you work with them, wherever you fit in your business, how many of you run a formal, what we call 360-degree feedback assessment every year where you're getting feedback in writing anonymously from your team that works for you? Raise your hand if you're doing that. I see a couple of hands. Okay, so Tara, by the way, I should have started with a thank you because I liked when Kathy did that too. See, I'll take a role model anywhere I can find one. Thank you for asking me to be here. Tara said to me, look, this is about tangible takeaways. You know, don't just tell a story, right? We're talking about developing folks, and the people that are here and investing their time and money to be here, they're like, you know, give me some stuff I can specifically work on. Sometimes I get a little preachy. I'm going to be a little preachy right now. If you are in charge of other people and you are not at least once a year doing a formal, written, anonymous 360 feedback program, okay, you need to do that. You will create value and you will be amazed. You know, if you run, I'll just imagine a big events company, but if you've got a full staff and you've got someone managing your inventory, right, of all the stuff, all of the rentals that you deal with, and you've got setup crew and you've got drivers, and then you've got vendors that work with you a lot. You've got, you know, an AV person that you always go to and a floral person that you always go to. They should be included in that, because when you say to them, right, and it can be 4 questions, it can be 8 questions. You can use, you know, one of those online surveymonkey.com. There's all these different ones out there. And you say, you know, what are 3 things that I could do differently? And they get to type that response and it's anonymous. Oh, you're going to learn some stuff, okay? Because if you're a powerful, effective leader, a lot of that definition has been, they say yes to you. They do what you say. Well, you know what? You can be a little moody. And you know what? When you make a mistake, you don't say sorry. And you know what? The last time you thanked me and actually looked me in the eye and thanked me was 2.5 years ago, right? And then you could read this feedback and you'd read it and you'd say, no, that's not me. I say thank you all the time. Yeah, but do you look them in the eye when you thank them? Do you know their first and last name when you say thank you, right? Do you know how many kids they have? Do you know what they had to deal with last night? Do you know if they could pay their rent this month? Do you care about them? Because if they don't think you have those answers, your thank you is worthless. But yet you wouldn't ever say, yeah, I dole out all sorts of worthless thank yous. You wouldn't know. So I hammer on this point because it's incredibly valuable. I brought you a present. You should have got them on your table, right? Yes. These are not makeup mirrors. You can use them for that if you want. This is where it starts. So with the managers in my company, when they go through training with us, I give out these mirrors. I ask my managers to carry it with them. It's not that they have it in their pocket every single day, but I want to build the habit that when you feel frustrated, when you are annoyed in that moment, I'll make another Kathy reference because I love the stuff she said. When that client calls you to yell at you, right, and that customer makes you want to cry, and then you want to think, that customer is my problem, that vendor is my problem, this pressure. Wrong, right? There is the only problem that you have one problem. It's right here, you, right? The good news is just remind yourself when you look at it and you say, okay, I'm the problem, I'm the solution. I will raise my game, right? Because you can't control anybody else anyways. But if you want to lead them, the bigger you get, the stronger your wings are, the more valuable you are, the more connected you are to people, the far higher likelihood that they will let you lead them. And make no mistake, they have to let you lead them. They have to want to be led by you. Otherwise, they just work for you, right? And that's really not the way to win. So let's talk about a couple other things that make leaders effective. Clearly, one of them, I think, is looking in the mirror. And along with that, I think, ask other people. Because when I look in the mirror, sometimes I need you to look in it with me, right? Because I may not notice. Like, I might think this shirt looks good on me. When I look in the mirror, it looks good. And you're like, have you seen that, jelly roll right there? Maybe it's time I retire the shirt. I don't know. You need feedback from people so you see what they see. So who knows what these numbers are? 168, 10,080. Shout it out. I'm so proud of you, okay? So you got the first one right. There's 168 hours in a week, and there's 10,080 minutes in a week. Okay, so I'm so thrilled that you knew that. For the rest of you, you're in trouble, okay? Because if I said to you, hey, do you know how to manage money? You'd say, yeah, enough at least. And then if I said to you, okay, let's start with the basics. How many pennies in a dollar? You'd all be like 100. I'd say okay, you're qualified to at least manage money. You know the basic building blocks of that. But if I say, hey, let's talk about personal productivity, setting priorities, investing our time where the most value is, let's talk about time management. If you don't know how many hours are in a week, how can you manage time? Right? So I'm not trying to bully you, but I want to make this point. This is this big gap between what you say and the reality. Yes, I've got my priorities. I manage my time. I'm on top of it. No, you're not. Not if you don't know how much you have. So I had to decide when I had the opportunity, and I appreciate it, to be here today. Is it worth it for me? I have to manage myself, right? If I wanted to say yes, why would I say yes? For ego, it's nice to be invited, right? It's nice to stand up in front of people. Okay, but ego isn't necessarily a value creator. Sometimes maybe, but in this case it wouldn't be. I had to say, what value am I creating by investing the time? I had to drive here, sit in traffic, be here. Then it's not polite to run out right after, so you have to stay for lunch, right? And really you're supposed to stay for 2 days. So I have to know, how am I using my 168? If I have a takeaway for you, please take that with you. Ask yourself that question at the start of every week. How am I using my 168? Right? And then you break that down into 10,080 minutes, and you invest it, and you allocate it. And when you tie your time to your priorities, you will accomplish your priorities. But if you don't tie your time to your priorities, you will accomplish something less. Right? So if watching cat videos for 3 hours a week is good for you and it's tied to your priorities, go for it. If it's not, you might want to lay off the social media. This is like the dreaded slide in a presentation that no one can read, so don't even try to look at it. What I will tell you here is this is another kind of infographic that I created, and it's a personal productivity map. So when we talk about investing our 168, I have built this tool for myself and for my whole team, and I teach this, right? Because if you're going to manage 1,600 employees, you want to lead them and teach them and give them tools to be productive. So time management is not just something that you're going to work hard at. Time management is the athleticism of business, okay? So you might be able to throw a baseball 100 miles an hour, but if you don't have balance and stamina and muscle conditioning, you're not going to be a pro pitcher. So if you're going to manage your time, right, you need to know how much you have, That's step one, but there's a whole bunch more that comes with that. And so I refer to time management as the athleticism of business, and I think if you want to be a great athlete, you need all that other athleticism. If you want to be a great winning business person, I believe you need time management and personal productivity. It's an easy, easy answer, right? Your best mentor is you. I put both words up there, right? So you could say me and I could say you. The good news is you have you with you all the time, especially once, it's different. When you have bosses, maybe they give you feedback. Most bosses aren't good at it. You get an annual review, which is pretty worthless. But you have you with you all the time. So if you can teach you to gather feedback, to look in the mirror, to coach yourself, to grow yourself, to solicit feedback from others, you've got a 1-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio all the time. So self-assessment and self-correction. I've built a whole sort of curriculum around this word with techniques and habits and methodologies. I just like to plant this seed today that I can assess myself and I can grow myself. Just the fact that that paradigm exists, that A, we don't have this ego that we think we're awesome, right? And we're getting it all right. Or that we have the other side of that, let's just call it low self-esteem, where we think like, I suck, I struggle, and I don't think I can get it better, and maybe there's someone else out there that can help me. I think both of those are ineffective, right? Count on you to self-assess and self-correct. Leaders can build brands and build reputations and ruin it really fast. So as soon as someone upsets you, gets you angry, and you start to feel the physiological reaction to a client, to a vendor, in my business, I'm dealing with drunk guests. I'm dealing with guests who are rude to my staff. Yeah, that's right. You're dealing with it too. We deal with all sorts of stuff, but a reaction is a total waste of time. Action is valuable. That's what we have to choose. So I usually swear when I give this example, but I don't want to use foul language. Is that okay? All right. It's proved. Okay. So this is too quick, But so if someone sort of like pushes you and says, fuck you, your reaction is to say, fuck you, and push them back, right? Is that okay? So it's a little aggressive, I know, but it's the best example I have. But that's not where we want to be, right? We want a space between stimulus and response. And in that space is where we want to live. Right? So what I want to do in that space, right? I want to breathe because it's that oxygen we need that fuels our brain. It's our brain we can count on to choose the correct action. So hopefully, if we're doing this right, we're not wasting a lot of time apologizing for ourselves, saying sorry, having regrets. I wish I would have, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, but I justifying. No. Instead, when I get whatever that push is, right, that stimulus, right, and then I'm going to be okay. There's always the time to breathe. I studied martial arts for years. Okay? You would think in a violent combat art that it's all about speed and it's all about that instant stimulus response. It's not. It's like a massive attack is coming towards you. Just step to the side and let it go by you. So again, there's a lot on this topic, but I think this is another one of these tactics that from a leadership perspective, when we're working on ourselves, we can really make a difference on a daily basis. And then ideally that leads us to, hey, we've done a whole bunch of work on ourselves. Now, let's see if we can lead some other people. And so this is really what we're looking for. There's nothing wrong with being held up as a leader and being in a position as a leader. Sometimes you're thrust into a leadership role you didn't ask for. Sometimes you got the leadership role you always wanted. If along the way, you've been working on you and you're looking in the mirror and you're soliciting feedback and you have a gap between stimulus and response and you know when to breathe, right? Now, we can talk about some tactics for leading others. One way that I lead myself, right? I know that I need my tools when I talk. So I really do have a glass of water here because my throat really does get dry. I make sure I touch my lips. You ever have a speaker who's up here and they get those little white things in the corner of their mouth and it's awful, and then you get fixated on them and you watch them go up and down and you can't hear anything they say? I don't want to be that guy either. I talk to you about productivity and managing time. First of all, only one of you even knew how many hours are in a week, okay? But all of you know what time lunch is served, okay? So I brought a tool with me, right? I brought this little clock. It's like an hourglass, and I'm watching my time evaporate. So I could say my priority is to be respectful of your time. But if I don't create a tool or a system to really do that, I'll fall short. Then I have to take the time to say sorry. All of that is about letting you down and wasting time. So if you need your water, set yourself up for your water. Know what you need. Have the confidence to breathe. Have a little water. There's time for that, right? Otherwise, I get to the end of a presentation and then I have regrets. I was all raspy, or I think I'm going to feel insecure about, why should I feel insecure about needing water or about having a clock that helps me perform for you? This is the stuff that I need. I should own it, right? It's just me doing my best, working on me to hopefully create some value for you. So let's see. I've got 2 tactics left that I want to share with you. Now, this is about leading others. I think this is a personal philosophy, so it has to fit for you. But I've worked for a whole lot of people over the years. I had a whole lot of people work for and with me over the years. And I've seen folks that they just lead with their heart, and they are warm, and they are loving, and there are aspects of working for them that is awesome. But when you are just all heart, you often end up broke. Okay? When you are all heart, you often end up running into other people who will just take your heart and stomp on it, right? And then you're all heart, but you're kind of broken. So you're really buggered then, right? And so there's a problem, I think, what I learned anyways, with being all heart. It doesn't get me to that final goal or whatever I'm striving for. So then I've worked for people that are all head. 3 strikes, you're out. These are the rules. This is the policy. This is the way we're going to do it. Everything is either yes or no. Perfectly clear direction. What does the spreadsheet say? What does the system say? There's awesome, absolutely awesome things about being all head. But there's real problems with that, right? Because we're leading and working with human beings and people. And at least for myself, like, I want to sleep well at night, right? And like, I'm kind of soft and emotional. Like, I actually really care what people think. Like, if I ended up wasting your time today, I'd be bummed. It really matters to me how people feel, how I make people feel. So this is what I call having a leadership style that is a balance of head and heart. And you can't always get them 50-50, but what I do is I try to evaluate the situations that I'm in. A decision needs to be made, right? We'll have employees, and I've got a lot of employees who, are new to America. I have single moms. I have folks living paycheck to paycheck, and things are tough out there. And so when I know, let's say someone is, having a child, and I think, I know how hard that is to afford. So we give diapers for the first year, right, when one of our team has a baby. But I also have to be able to afford that, right? And I'm trying to make a decision of, like, how good is the employee? Because I can't just give diapers to every single person I meet on the street that's having a baby. So we kind of have a system. We evaluate performance. We look at tenure and performance, and then we have a discussion with the person. And then it's like, hey, we're going to invest something in that child and in you, even if we're going to get nothing in return. And that's okay, right? So that's X months. But for someone who is really performing doing that, they get diapers for a full year. And we've had folks who had twins and triplets, and so it really matters. But I can't just be all heart. You have to have a protocol with head as well. And then my second tactic with managing others, right, is seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. If you're a fan of Stephen Covey and you've read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you'll know that I took this straight from Covey. He's a genius. It is amazing to me that they don't use that book in every single college and every single university and every single, it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Why would you not read this? It's the best-selling business book, I think, of all time. So I'm going to tell a quick little story because it really proves the point here, and I think I'm doing okay with time. We were driving here this morning, and there was a lot of traffic, and then there was there must have been an accident up ahead, so we're in bumper to bumper on the Beltway, and then an ambulance goes by, and people are doing the right thing. I was like, all right, look, everybody, look at you pulling over, right? I was pretty psyched. Like, the general public was doing as they're supposed to, and the ambulance goes flying by. And then there's a Mercedes, like right behind the ambulance, right? And the Mercedes is going flying by. So here's what happens inside me. I think to myself, mother. But then I pause and I breathe and I think, what if that's just the dad who's following the ambulance, whose kid is in the ambulance, right? So seek first to understand, right? Because what a jerk it makes me if I'm, right? Now, if I could get the answer, seek first to understand, hey, excuse me, gentleman in the Mercedes, why are you following the ambulance? My kid's in there. I could be like, okay, then let me seek to be understood. My heart is with you and I hope everything's okay. Seek first to understand, hey, gentleman in the Mercedes, why are you following that ambulance? Because I'm in a rush. Well then, guess what? Right? I can now seek to be understood. So I'm not saying that I never want to deliver my critical message, but if we seek first to understand and we truly get the answer, then we can choose what message we want to deliver. So I have a summary slide. I've tried to condense my time, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to take any questions or have any Q&A, and then I'll give you my quick wrap-up. Any questions? Yes?
So, hypothetically speaking, you were talking about doing the once a year, the formal 360. If your only coworker is your husband, like, what would be the best way?
Yeah. Yes. I would say, hypothetically speaking, if one were in that situation, that it is so worth the non-anonymous feedback. But I think you got to create a structure on that. Like, what you don't want to play is the, what are the 6 things you hate about me game, right? 3 things you do differently if you had a different spouse. So I think what you want to do is just structure the feedback. And then probably don't review it over a bottle of wine. That would be my only fear. But if you avoid that in any way, because you're in a family business, right? You're in a relationship with the person you're married to, any of those things, all you're doing there is sweeping stuff under the rug. It's much better. Take that stuff out, discuss it. Make sure that conversation is during the day. I do think that it's easier to be logical during the day, 11 a.m., and have a conversation rather than reviewing that stuff. Family businesses slip into let's talk about it over dinner, let's talk about it overnight. That's really personal time. So I think you make it a daytime business conversation. And I wouldn't also, when I say you got to do it at least once a year, build a habit. Do it every 90 days. Right? It's what do you wish you know? And once that you get in that flow, I think if you're already working together, my bet is it goes really well. Yes, sir.
So after every event that we have, I always have a hot wash the next day. And that's mainly because of the military. Do you think that's overkill?
And so when you say hot wash, that's like a post-mortem, a recap, right?
And that way I always ask 3 things. What did we do well?
Yep.
What could we improve upon? What didn't we do well? And that way my staff and I sit around and talk, but also my clients and I talk. Before they leave and before I say thank you and it was wonderful and I love you, what can I do better? and then I share that with my staff and the hot wash. Is that overkill?
No, I think it's excellent. I just think it's different than a 360. So I think that recap, in my business we call them the post-mortem, and I think frequently is good. Generally those conversations end up, it's really a tactical review, right? We tried this tactic, it didn't work. This is what we should have done, and it ends up tactics, logistics, ta-da. I want you to keep doing that. I think it's really valuable, and for anyone who's not doing that, I think you've raised a really good best practice. I think what won't come up actually in that discussion, especially to you, the boss, is like, well, yeah, this was late and this was late. But it was late because you're kind of mean to us, right? And so, that driver who was supposed to be there, last time he was there, you yelled at him, so he actually wanted to wait till you were gone to make his delivery. That stuff will get sort of swept away because people aren't used to telling the boss, you're part of the problem. So that's why I love it anonymous. When you get to a point in a really evolved organization, like I like to think that a lot of my team can shoot straight with me, but I'll tell you what they don't shoot straight with me on. When they know I have a favorite employee, right? They're like, well, we're not gonna criticize him or her because Dan loves them. I'm gonna miss that whole dynamic. And so I think in some of those things, stuff can go unsaid. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. I'm not a huge fan of the, because I like to keep the questions relatively small, like, 5 questions, 8 questions, whatever. And I want them open-ended. So I don't like that rank me on 1 to 10, kind of. When you're doing a huge 360 across lots of people, you need it because it's easier for data. But in relatively small, you're giving it out to 9 people, 8 people, 6 people, 12 people. I think you can get open-ended questions and read a narrative response. You might have 2 or 3 questions that are multiple choice on a 1 to 5 scale, so you can get a couple of really objective data points. Yes?
Okay, well, I run a catering company, which of course has several different functions in regards to the employees. They do different things. So I ended up this year having to come up with a statement for them to use amongst themselves when they feel like something's been said that offended them. I haven't, and I realize I haven't come with when do we discuss this. So if someone comes to them and they feel offended, and we're in the midst of everything, so you can't stop and really address it, they say, bless your heart, and then they walk away. I realized I didn't put a let's talk about it because sometimes it festers.
Yes.
And I think what you have given me has now given me another homework assignment on top of everything else, to try and figure out the best communication piece for me as well as for amongst the staff, which is for family, how to address when offended by something that's being said or the way it's being said, because you can't stop at the moment to address it because you're in the middle of somebody's wedding. So you can't really stop right then. Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. I mean, so in our restaurants, again, 1,600 employees. So when we hire them at orientation, everybody downloads an app on their phone. The app is called Stop It. It's designed to, as you can imagine what the name is, like something's going on that I don't like. And the feedback comes straight to me. Like I have some folks in HR, but I want to, because then I can chat online anonymously with them. They know it's me, but I don't know who they are. And it keeps me grounded. Because, so I think some form, but you could do that in a handwritten note with a shoebox that people drop it into. It doesn't, you can go old school with it, kind of like the anonymous tip line. But I do believe that if you don't open up the lines of communication for your teams to share with you their frustration in real time, it is festering. I mean, I have folks, again, I have a lot of immigrants that work for me, right? And I've got all sorts of skin colors and all sorts of ethnic backgrounds. And I have learned that if you don't let people say, hey, this bothered me, it just bothers them more each and every day. And then it becomes, that's just the way it is here. And so since we've started doing this over the last couple of years, I've had people say hey, I feel like I'm treated differently here because of my skin color. I feel like I'm discriminated against. And then we say, hey, let's talk about it. And we have this conversation. And what it leads to is hey, thanks for listening to me. I think I just needed to say this. Maybe it's not because of my skin color. It's just because the person was rude, But my life experience has I'm so used to being discriminated against. So I would just try to open that up in some fluid way. And not everything needs a solution. Sometimes it's hey, you know what? I hear you. Let's work on it. Right? All right, I'll do a quick wrap up for you and then get you to lunch. So we talked about starting with yourself, right? We talked about formal 360s. We talked about looking in the mirror. You talked about 168 hours in a week, 10,080 minutes. Look at my little superstar over there. Thank you. Self-assessment and self-correction, right? You really got to inspect yourself if you want that winning grade. The gap between stimulus and response. Balance of head and heart. And then, being a great listener, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, and seeking first to understand. So thank you so much.